Welcome to this explainer. So today we're tackling a massive source of anxiety for e-discovery practitioners. I mean, how exactly do you prove that your shiny new generative AI document review actually worked? It's a huge question, right? The tech is moving at absolute light speed, but that fear of a court rejecting your multi-million document production? Yeah, that is very real. But don't worry, because today we are going to solve that anxiety. We're looking at a proven ironclad standard that actually dates all the way back to 2018.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The absolute clearest, most bulletproof answer for AI validation comes from an incredibly surprising place. Are you ready for this? An 8-year-old federal antitrust case about the price of broiler chickens. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the validation framework born from that poultry case is literally the gold standard for defensibility today. And honestly, it is exactly what we need to safely deploy GenAI in modern litigation.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 5 sections. Section 1, the AI validation challenge. Section 2, the engine versus the vehicle. Section 3, the document crash test. Section 4, human SME sign-off. And finally, Section 5, the owner's manual.
Let's start with Section 1, the AI validation challenge. We're looking at why process fails, not technology.
You see, judges accepted technology-assisted review, or TAR, years ago. But real matters still go completely sideways. Why? Well, mostly because producing parties treat validation as an afterthought. They throw around these high recall numbers but can't actually show their math or document their stopping rationale. And that brings us to our benchmark to fix this whole mess. Back in January 2018, in the In re Broiler Chicken antitrust litigation, Magistrate Judge Jeffrey T. Gilbert and Special Master Maura Grossman created a beautifully detailed validation protocol. 8 years later, this framework remains the absolute most detailed validation protocol a federal court has ever issued. The secret to its longevity, it's entirely method agnostic.
Moving to Section 2, the engine versus the vehicle. This is a crucial analogy to help us understand how an 8-year-old framework can possibly validate tomorrow's AI.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole concept. Think of your review workflow, your oversight, and your validation process as the vehicle. It's your sturdy car chassis. The predictive algorithm you're actually using, well, that's just the engine. Over the last 20 years, we've swapped that engine out repeatedly, right? We went from basic keyword searches over to support vector machines to continuous active learning, and now we're dropping in generative AI large language models. The engine changes? Absolutely. But the vehicle, the way we actually test if the car drives safely, that remains exactly the same.
Which brings us to the absolute most brilliant foundational rule of the entire Broiler Chicken Protocol. Validate the review, not the tool. I mean, the protocol literally doesn't care if a human, an old algorithm, or a state-of-the-art Gen AI made the coding decisions. It validates the final production output. It just measures what was found and what was missed. And this is exactly why you can drop a brand new Gen AI engine into this existing legal chassis and remain fully 100% defensible in court.
All right, Section 3, the document crash test. Let's look at the actual math of validation.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this 3,000 document validation sample is specifically stratified. Imagine a post-culling review population of, say, 2 million documents. From that massive pile, we pull a single 3,000 document validation sample. But wait, we don't just pull them randomly. We stratify them. We take 500 documents that were actually coded as responsive. That becomes our C1 set. We take another 500 documents that human reviewers coded as non-responsive. That's C2. And finally, we take 2,000 documents that the machine completely excluded from the review entirely. That's our C3 set.
So let's walk through the math from our 2 million document worked example to see how this generates our final grade. Let's say out of those 2 million docs, the machine flagged 240,000 as responsive, humans rejected 480,000, and a whopping 1.28 million were never reviewed. Now, when our expert reviews our 3,000 document sample, they find 470 responsive docs in that first bucket, 35 missed responsive docs in the second, and 45 missed responsive docs in that massive unreviewed bucket. When you run Appendix A's arithmetic from the protocol, this yields an estimated recall of 78.3%. It also shows a tiny 2.25% illusion rate in that massive unreviewed set. It proves mathematically how well your system actually worked.
But hold on, here is a massive warning flag you absolutely must pay attention to. A 78.3% recall is a great sign. It sits perfectly in the court's 70 to 80% reference band. However, recall informs the decision. It does not make the decision. The protocol dictates that you must look at the qualitative nature of those missed documents. Are those 45 missed documents just marginal noise, like newsletter forwards? Or did you miss 6 documents from a key custodian speaking in a secret code your AI didn't understand? The nature of the misses matters just as much as the math. A massive blind spot might require a total redo.
Let's move to Section 4, Human SME Sign-Off. Meet the ultimate safety inspector.
So the crucial point here is that the rules for how this SME, the subject matter expert, conducts their review are incredibly strict. Those 3,000 sample documents, they must be coded entirely blind by the SME. They're presented in a single randomized combined queue. The SME cannot see any prior coding. They have no idea if the document was flagged by the AI, rejected by a human, or never reviewed at all. And most importantly, it must be a strictly human review. An AI cannot grade its own homework. This strict human independence is exactly what gives the validation its evidentiary weight in front of a judge.
And finally, Section 5, the Defensibility Owner's Manual. Let's talk about your documentation.
To build an absolute shield against opposing counsel and regulatory agencies, like the DOJ or FTC, every single artifact in your practitioner's log must answer one of 3 essential questions. Number 1, what did we search? This covers your collection scope and culling parameters. Number 2, how did we decide to stop? This is your stopping rationale, which has to be documented before validation even begins. And number 3, how do we know it worked? This is your validation design, your SME results, and your recall statistics. If an artifact in your log doesn't answer one of these, throw it out. But if one of these questions has no artifacts behind it, well, you are risking a catastrophic, court-ordered redo of your entire review.
Let's move to the GenAI specific updates and see how this builds on what we've discussed. The chassis remains the same, but we do need 3 slight tweaks to our documentation. First, instead of logging training rounds like we did with older models, you must log your criteria and your prompt versions. Second, GenAI is amazing because it can explain its reasoning, right? So preserve those per-document AI rationales. They're absolute gold for meet and confers. And third, track your model versions and settings, because GenAI can be non-deterministic.
So, as you integrate generative AI into your workflows, ask yourself this: are you validating the tool, or are you validating the review? If you focus on the output, using that blind, stratified sample of 3,000 documents and rigorous human SME sign-off, you really have nothing to fear. You are completely empowered to adopt the most advanced GenAI available, safe in the knowledge that a federal court already blessed your validation chassis years before your AI engine even existed. The technology is going to continue to evolve at light speed for sure, but the standard for human truth, that remains exactly the same. So, tell me, will your next production be ready for the crash test?